rats! Oh, joyous rats! Swarming and scourging and pillaging the insides of Desmond's fourth vacation home on the outskirts of Destin, granting neither quarter nor crumb! This jolly brigade of rodents had been slowly accumulating, populating and filling Desmond's walls for months on end, and now, on the day of Desmond's arrival, their day of reckoning had finally come! It was a second layer of carpet, a living, breathing sea of revolt, and festive squeaking cheer as far as the eye could see in all directions. They carried all sorts of diseases with them: hantavirus, Lyme disease, leptospirosis, salmonellosis, as well as an exciting new prion that had formed only a few days ago in a stroke of glorious luck and that had not yet been named. The diseases formed a sort of second society, mixing and mingling from rat to rat in complicated dances of probability and transmission. Desmond, nimble little freak that he was, had managed to perch atop a half-open door in his sitting room where the rats couldn't reach. It was unclear exactly how he'd managed to do this, but it had involved a lot of extra twirls and flips that he probably didn't need. He hadn't escaped completely unscathed. There were a couple nicks around his ankles where the rat's teeth had found their mark. Of course, it was unlikely to matter given that he'd had all the standard vaccinations, as well as several secret vaccinations that he'd been withholding from the public. But there was always the hope that one of the prion rats might have gotten to him. He'd taken out his cell phone and started shouting orders to every pest control company within a 5-mile radius. He'd managed to get them all on speakerphone. Such was his right as an inconceivably, disgustingly rich person.
They've completely made the place their own! What's wrong with you all? What do I pay you for? If there's a single brain put together between your mushy heads, you'll be here with flamethrowers and hazmat suits in the next 5 minutes! Do you hear me? 5 minutes if you want to keep your jobs, all of you!
Pest control was one of the industries where Desmond had a local monopoly. He thought there was a sense of power in the idea of driving vermin away by force.
Which one of you is responsible for this house, anyway? Speak up now, and your job will be the only thing I take.
Hi, I'm Ian,
Ian said in a voice that shook with fear almost as much as it shook between his upper and lower registers.
with vermin hurtin'. I've got the report right here, and we sent people over to your house a week ago. They gave it the all clear.
Well, Ian, if you did a check, maybe you can explain the seething mass of bubonic torment on my floor. Did you perhaps send someone blind, deaf, and comatose on accident?
Desmond's voice, in stark opposition to Ian's, was like a freight train, hurtling forward with unstoppable momentum born from a furious internal core.
No, I'm sure we checked. Maybe it could be someone playing a prank on you.
A prank? People love me. Who on earth would want to prank me, let alone go to such lengths? Idiot boy!
For once, Desmond was actually correct, at least in a way. This was no prank. These were very sneaky rats, and they had avoided the detection of the pest control people by being very sneaky and good. They were in no way, shape, or form intended as a prank. In fact, there was no intention at all to them besides the intention that rats normally have, which is to enjoy good food in a warm house. And there was nothing else to say on the matter, so Ian really ought to have started considering the sneakiness of the rats instead. Of course, it's difficult for even the best humans to admit when they're wrong, not least when their job might hang in the balance. Ian, who was most certainly a human, and not necessarily one of the best, pressed bravely and incorrectly forward.
It seems like the best explanation to me, sir, if I know my pests, which I think I do. I mean, we didn't see a single sign of anything odd when we were there. I have the report in front of me. It's actually really detailed because we knew you'd be coming over in the near future.
Desmond went for another retort, but a wave of rats crashed against the door and jostled him enough that he lost his grip on his phone. It was a pity that he didn't fall in entirely, but the rats were pleased enough with their new toy for the time being. Some of them nibbled at the receiver, which sounded loud and unpleasant to the poor pest control people on the other side. A contingent of the smarter rats took a renewed interest in the door. Some of them started trying to skitter up the side, to no avail, but the bulk of them started nibbling at the bottom. Desmond gave a very loud scream, but this did little to stymie the merriness of the horde. Desmond, frustrated immensely with his current situation, cast his eyes about the room for some way to set about fixing things. The sitting room itself was largely empty. Between visits, he had a team of experts work on his vacation homes to maximize the feng shui, and this time they'd taken a minimalist approach, or at least as minimalist as was conceivable with someone like Desmond breathing down their necks. However, the sitting room was attached to a small indoor gym, which had several different work machines cramped tightly together and, perhaps more importantly, weights of various persuasions which, Desmond thought, could be used as impromptu weapons. The rats had taken little interest in the exercise room because, apart from some unappetizing sweat residue from the last time Desmond had been there wasn't anything to eat. The only trouble, for Desmond, was that the door didn't open into the gym. It was on the wrong side. To make matters worse, for Desmond, the rats had made quick progress gnawing up the door. By stacking on top of one another, they'd almost drawn level with the first hinge in some spots. One would think that this would be enough to deter Desmond from trying any tricky maneuvers. One would be wrong. Among all the things Desmond lacked, fear was one of them. That's not to say he had no self-preservation instinct. He had plenty of that, but that didn't manifest as fear in his mind. It was more like a mangled sort of anger pride that refused to be extinguished. To make matters worse, for normal people everywhere, he was still obscenely acrobatic. He grabbed the outer rim on the door's threshold, steadied himself, and then kicked off the door. His legs swung down, narrowly avoiding several rat bites, and then back up on the other side, where he hooked his toes into an especially gaudy picture frame that held an oil portrait of himself, shirtless and muscle-bound. According to him, there was no better media in the world for motivation. From here, Desmond was home free. There was a chin-up bar only a few feet away, and then it was a hop, skip, and a jump to the weight rack. He grabbed a jump rope on the way, something which would have baffled any sensible person watching, and then he tied it to a 5-pound disc weight. Desmond spent the rest of the weight for the pest control course swatting rats with his long-distance weapon, which didn't do much against the sheer volume of them all, but did make him feel better. As the different pest control groups arrived, he kept their order in his head so that he could later apply pay cuts accordingly. Only the first group to arrive remained entirely unscathed. There was some frantic deliberation over how best to clear out the rats, only for Desmond to eventually decide that they should just burn down the house. He'd annex a few of the nearby lots and build a bigger, more decadent one. The prion was eradicated in the fire, which was probably a positive on the whole. No human ever found out that it existed.